Hi, welcome back to GMRao Law Associates. Today our topic is Rental Agreement and Renting Property Precautions, Landlords and Tenants, for Indians and NRIs. This topic is selected, as many of our viewers requested us to make a video in detail about rental agreement, hence this video for the benefit of the viewers. Please watch the video till the end, so that you will not miss out any important points. Most of the points are explained in and all the way we will be giving you important tips especially at the end of the video. So watch the video till the end without fail. Let us go on. Information in this video should not be considered as a legal opinion in any way whatsoever and does not establish a client-lawyer relationship. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional legal advice or opinion. Always seek advice from lawyer personally regarding your specific legal issue. If you are new to this channel, request you to subscribe, like, comment and share. Today we are going to cover the following topics. Who is landlord or owner? Who is tenant? What is rental agreement? Why rental agreement should be made for 11 months? Why the landlord or owner should take precautions? Why the tenant should take precautions? Rental agreement precautions for landlord and tenant in detail. What is the definition of landlord? Landlord means the owner of a building and includes a person who is receiving or is entitled to receive the rent of a building, whether on his own account or on behalf of another person or on behalf of himself and others or as an agent, trustee, executor, administrator, receiver or guardian or who would so receive the rent or be entitled to receive the rent, if the building were let to a tenant. Explanation: a tenant who sublets a building shall be deemed to be a landlord within the meaning of this act in relation to the sub-tenant. What is the definition of tenant? Tenant means any person by whom or on whose account rent is payable for a building and includes the surviving spouse, or any son or daughter, of a deceased tenant who had been living with the tenant in the building as a member of tenant's family up to the death of the tenant and a person continuing in possession after the termination of the tenancy in his favor, but does not include a person placed in occupation of a building by its tenant or a person to whom the collection of rents or fees in a public market, cart stand or slaughterhouse or of rents for shops has been framed out or leased by a local authority. What is rental agreement? As per Wikipedia, a rental agreement is a contract of rental, usually written, between the owner of a property and a renter who desires to have temporary possession of the property. It is distinguished from a lease, which is more typically for a fixed term. As a minimum, the agreement identifies the parties, the property, the term of the rental, and the amount of rent for the term. Rental agreement is a legal contract between the landlord and tenant. The rental agreement safeguards the interest of both the parties. The person renting out the property can be either owner or the power of attorney. Why should I rent only for 11 months? There is no limit for the number of months for renting the property on rent. If you are renting property for 11 months, there is no need or compulsory to register your rental agreement. If you make the rental agreement more than 12 months, you can do so by registering your agreement. Few examples, why the landlord-owner should take precautions? Tenant may carry out printing face currency in your premises. Tenant may not pay the rent regularly. Tenant may give a check for security deposit which can be bounced. Tenant may sell drugs from your premises. Tenant may do any illegal activities in the shadow of residential apartment. Tenant may create nonsense at the rental premises. Tenant may be rude to the neighbor. Tenant may be a criminal. Why the tenant should take precautions? Landlord renting the property may not be the actual owner or the power of attorney. Landlord may increase the rent without any notice. Landlord may ask to vacate at any time. Landlord may not refund security deposit. Landlord may deduct painting charges, damages from security deposit, if not mentioned in agreement. What are the precautions I should take about a prospectus tenant? Or what are the precautions I should take care to know whom I am renting the property? 1. Collect copy of Aadhaar card, passport copy and voter ID. 2. If your prospect tenant is working in any company, ask them to get the letter that they are working in the company. 3. Employment history. 4. Get the address proof verified. 5. Do thorough background check of the prospective tenant. 6. Inform the local police along with the details of tenant with copy of address proof etc. If possible, get the police clearance. 7. Rental agreement or lease agreement is must. Most of the landlords avoid making the rental agreement, which will prove legal hardships for the owners as well as tenants. Important precautions landlord and tenant must take care in preparing the rental agreement are as follows. 1. Details of landlord and tenant ensure that name, father's name, age, occupation, present and permanent address, Aadhaar card number, email ID and phone numbers of landlord and tenant are mentioned in the details. 2. Details of property and inventory. Rental agreement must include details of property such as area, number of rooms etc. The rental agreement must include about the inventory of the property such as number of beds, washing machine, lights, cupboard, gas stove, refrigerator etc., their make and description. The rental agreement must include clauses about the damages of furniture and fixtures and compensation. 3. Rent commencement and termination date. The rental agreement must include the period of rent such as commencement of rental agreement and termination. 4. Purpose of rent. If the tenant is considering for residential, ensure a clause that the premises should not be used for business purpose or any other purposes except for residential. Any alterations and modification of property should not be carried out without the notice and acceptance by the landlord. The tenant should not sub-rent the premises. 5. Lock-in period or notice period or minimum rent period. The rental agreement must include about the lock-in period or minimum rent period or notice period. In most of the cases there will be clause of minimum 1 or 2 months rent period in Hyderabad. If you are vacating before the said period, there will be clause for forfeiting of security deposit or advance. 6. Security deposit. When it comes to the security deposit, most of the landlords charge 1 month or 3 months or 6 months or 1 year rent as security deposit in Hyderabad. Most of the cases the landlord does not consider to include the security deposit in the rental agreement or give receipt for the security deposit. It is must to include in the rental agreement about the security deposit. The conditions for security deposit must be drafted in detail considering all the aspects such as, wear and tear deductions will be deducted out of security deposit or not? Painting cost will be deducted out of security deposit or not? In general, when the tenant is vacating, landlord deducts painting cost out of security deposit etc., which will become dispute between landlord and tenant, if it is not agreed upon in the rental agreement. The rental agreement must include, when the security deposit will be refunded and in case if the security deposit is not refunded on the date of vacating what would be the interest on the security deposit etc. 7. Rent. Here I take the example of Hyderabad for rent. In Hyderabad the most of tenants will pay the rent in advance. This means at the time of vacating or on the date of vacating tenant need not to pay rent. The rental agreement must include that whether the rent is paid in advance, that is before starting the month or later after staying for a complete month etc. The rental agreement must include that on which date the rent amount will be paid. Example: rent should be paid on 10th of every month and how the rent amount will be paid such as bank transfer or GPay or Paytm or check, demand draft etc. Rental agreement must also include that how much delay can be considered, what if the rent is not paid for 15 days or what if the rent is not paid for 1 month or what if the rent paid even after adjusting the security deposit? Rental agreement must also include the penalty clause if the payment of rent is delayed. And how the rent receipt will be issued, example by hand or by post or by email or by courier etc. 8. Maintenance. The rental agreement must include the clause for maintenance such as, who will pay the maintenance? Whether landlord or tenant, how much, does the tenant should pay the maintenance amount separately to the landlord or to the building society? Generally electricity bill will be paid by the tenant but the same must be mentioned in rental agreement. Agreement must also include about the maintenance of semi-furnished or furnished homes. It is important to keep in mind that the conditions must be clearly mentioned in the rental deed such as who will bear the damages of existing amenities such as tube lights, fans, door repairing, bathroom repairing etc. Rental agreement must also include about the damages of semi-furnished, furnished furniture etc. 9. Government taxes. The rental agreement must include clause regarding the government taxes, such as, who will pay the property tax whether the landlord or tenant. 10. Terms of renewal. Ensure that the rental agreement should include the terms of renewal and % increase in the rent. Ensure that the renewal agreement should not include the lock-in period again at the time of renewal of agreement. 11. Refund of security deposit. The rental agreement must have the clause for refund of security deposit and deduction of damages. Agree upon the deductions which can be made out of security deposit or advance amount or agree upon that no deduction will be made out of security deposit or advance amount. Ensure to mention in the rental agreement that if the security deposit is not paid or refunded on the date of vacating the property, 24% interest will be charged per annum etc. Or ensure that you take post-dated check from the landlord and mention the check details in the rental agreement, and also mention that tenant can produce the check after completion of the rental period after clearing all the dues etc. 12. When the landlord can visit for inspecting the property. The rental agreement must include that when and what time the landlord can visit to inspect the rental premises etc. 13. Terms of eviction. This clause is must in the rental agreement that on which incidents or when the rental agreement will be void and cancelled automatically. Some of the incidents such as, any illegal activities conducted in the rental premises, or rent not paid for 2 months, or tenant creating nonsense in the rental premises etc. Agreement must also include that, how the notice of eviction will be served by tenant or landlord. Ensure to mention that the eviction notice can also be served through email apart from registered post or courier. 14. Documents to be collected by tenant. Ensure that the rental agreement includes that the landlord will give a copy of Aadhaar card and PAN card to the tenant at the time of signing the agreement. Also mention to provide copy of power of attorney, if the landlord is a power of attorney. The rental agreement must include that the landlord or power of attorney will issue the rental receipt properly signed every month, by hand or by email or by registered post or by courier. 15. Jurisdiction of court. Rental agreement must include in case of dispute which would be the jurisdiction of the court. 16. Signatures of landlord and tenant. Rental agreement must include the signature of landlord and tenant and date. 17. Signature of 2 adult witness. 18. Finally, the agreement may have clause that landlord will issue receipt for handing over the keys and no dues, at the time of handing over the keys, to avoid future claims or legal disputes. It is recommended that the rent agreement must be drafted with the help of a property lawyer, who can ensure that all the relevant clauses are included in the agreement. The rent agreement will not be same for every property or landlord or tenant. Avoid using template of rental agreement to avoid legal disputes. Thank you for watching the video. If you have not yet subscribed this channel, liked, commented and shared this video. Please subscribe this channel, like, comment and share this video now.